Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Thanksgiving edition of EDBEAT. I couldn't help it. We said Halloween last time, so I figure Thanksgiving's good for this one. How about that? He's like, yeah, it's good. Don't lie, you're cooking in the background.
I'm muted.
No more. Muted, no more.
Oh,
all right, so
there's the label is still up.
Ooh.
It's gone now.
Wait. Darn, I was so proud of myself with my technical expertise. So welcome, everybody. I'm April Cummings. This is Patrick Brendel from Cayman Current. And this week we have some education stuff to talk about, as that is the theme of our ongoing...
Yes. It's a cornucopia of news.
As I like to say, and as Patrick does too in the Thanksgiving theme. So thank you all for being here, speaking of gratitude. And we have a couple things that we wanted to chat about a bit today. Let's start, Patrick, with the news about Dr. Stacey McAffee and UCCI, the University College. She was just on the program with us a couple of weeks back, and now we've learned she's leaving.
Yes. Yeah, so it's, somewhat of, I wouldn't say sudden or surprising news, but, the press release lands, and it's almost like she's kind of giving, it's almost as like it's formal public, informal public notice of her departure. So Dr. McAfee's contract runs out at the end of the year, 31st December. And so she's announced that she is not returning as the university president. And in fact, she and her family will be leaving the island in December. So that... Go on.
I was going to say, so I know that we have a video clip prepared. Just make sure you tell me when it's time to play it, because my hand's over here on the button. So tell me when it's time to play it, and I shall play it.
Yeah, I guess for context, we had Dr. McAfee and Dr. Mosley Matchett on the program a few weeks ago, and really the topic of discussion was how UCCI is in the middle of their 5-year strategic plan or vision. So, and they're in the middle of one of the components of that is UCCI is seeking this kind of top level U.S. accreditation, and so Dr. McAfee's departure comes at a time when the university is, it's like, a pivotal time, quote unquote, for UCCI. So the footage that we have is a clip from the Current's upcoming mini documentary on technical vocation education and STEM education. And so my journalist, Kayla Young, as part of this, she's interviewed dozens of people. And one of those was Dr. McAfee, and Dr. McAfee talks a little bit about where UCCI is. So if you can roll that bean footage.
I knew you were going to say beautiful bean footage. And for those of you who don't know, just look it up. It's great. Okay, but first, I roll the beautiful bean footage.
Been like taking on this role? What have been your priorities?
We, within a matter of a few months of my arrival at UCCI, passed a new strategic plan with a bold vision that faculty and staff have been dreaming about for a while. And we've been focused on, we're about halfway through that plan, making progress. Some of the key areas of opportunity were to ensure that the university was using technology to deliver more education and training, really enriching our STEM and TVET opportunities, and also pursuing another level of coveted international accreditation, which is really a quality assurance process. So getting ourselves ready for that journey and improving our student-centeredness.
Great. Yeah, we've seen an expansion of programs,
yes,
right?
Yes. Many things. In fact, we've been able to be very nimble in a sort of a very unique time. We've worked hard to ensure that what we're offering, both in short courses in TVET and academically in our degree programs, is meeting the need of the local community. And we're seeing that students are staying for longer periods of time, which has allowed us to increase, for example, the concentrations or the minors that we offer in business.
So there, Stacey is outlining, the plan ahead. There is no indication there that Dr. McAfee sounded like she was planning on leaving at that point, and that was what, mid-October, maybe.
Yes.
So that it's interesting.
Yeah, and as we don't have any official insight into what's going on at the university. But the way I understand the process is when somebody is approaching the end of their contract in a leadership position like this, you would give notice of your intent to either that you want to apply to return at the end of your contract, or else say that you don't. And then it would be up to the board either to consider and either accept the renewal, or to immediately start the recruitment search for a new leader for the system. And it doesn't seem like, as far as I know, I have no indication that either of those things happened. In a letter from the new UCCI board chairman, Gilbert McLean, which went out Thursday afternoon, and on the site Friday morning. Then I have a copy of the current website, and he basically said at that point that he says basically he kind of signaled the launch of the search process. So the position will be advertised locally and overseas, and then an interim president and CEO will be appointed to serve until the new president is found. And so whoever the new interim president and CEO of UCCI is going to join the ranks of the very many interim and acting directors throughout government.
It is not the easiest process either to replace leadership positions like this. So it can take some time, even when it's, whether it's local or international recruiting, this position is key to what happens going forward for the institution, particularly at a critical juncture like this, as you've mentioned. So that process can take some time to find someone, unless there's someone waiting in the wings already, who's the right fit for this. So, and I've been on, a couple of boards, not at UCCI, but ICCI, because of my family connections. That's not why I'm on the board, but that's why I was sometimes recruited to assist with matters. Man, I wish that board paid. But anyway, so it goes. But what I found was that it's a very laborious process. You really want to make sure not just that they have the right credentials and right experience, but also there is a culture fit as well that can be, it's not as easy as just plopping someone down in the job and they're just going to instantly figure it out. People have different work styles. They come from different environments, different university and college environments, and different philosophies. So kind of finding that right combination for where you're headed as an institution can take some time to do. It is not something that you want to have to rush into. So that I can see that process, taking a bit, unless there's the perfect candidate sitting there already.
Yes, it's one of these leadership positions. It's not like you just put it out on Indeed.com or in the work database, and we need a PhD, we need X number of years experience, and then the first person who checks the boxes goes into it, because there's going to be, of course, the academic requirements, the experience, but then there's going to be personality. How do you work with the board? And then there's going to be kind of this vision for taking the going forward, because you are the leader. So you can have somebody who's
university too,
qualified,
right?
But wants to do something in the exact opposite direction that the government or the board or other stakeholders want, and you say, well, this is not the direction we want to go in.
Precisely.
Even though we think you'd be really good at taking it in that direction.
And so that's, I think, that's where they're headed next, is to figure out where we're going from here. And that does bring us to, from my perspective anyway, that last week we had the throne speech and budget address, and I did, we did have the strategic policy statement earlier in the year, and the budget policy statement is the next iteration of that, really, right? It's if you've had a little bit of time, you've gone through the process, and you are, as a government, outlining the why, I think, for the money that we're about to debate over spending. And so, education did come up quite frequently, but I did find it, and perhaps it's just that it was all compressed in that single day period. I did find it difficult to get a clear sense of where and how our education spending is looking like compared to last year, for example. What did you and I know, look, you've had like 5 minutes to go through it, but what are your initial thoughts? And as a reporter, journalist, what are you going to do next with what you've seen and heard?
Well, I think you start from, I think you're exactly right. You start from kind of the general overview. And this isn't just reporting on education, but really this is how you take the budget as a whole. So you go from the, say, the throne speech with that Governor Roper delivered, and he referred to education. Now that Caymanian and overseas territory citizens are now going to be eligible to receive loan assistance studying in the UK, just the same as British students do. So, that's kind of, is part of Governor Roper's priority and all governors to strengthen the UK's links to Cayman. So now that's, now students here will be eligible for really, good loan assistance for schools in the UK. And then you look at, say, the budget speech from Premier Wayne Panton, which ran 2 hours and 53 pages written. So now you're getting into, there's a lot to dig into right now. And he spoke about education. Again, it's the number one stated priority of the PAC government. And so he highlighted issues as plans to design and I'm looking to the side because I'm reading it. Plans to design and construct halls at Theoline McCoy Primary School in Bottomtown and the Joanna Clark Primary School in Savannah. So they have plans to build new buildings out there. And they want to expand the Lighthouse School. And they're going to design and build a new building for Layman Scott High School on the Brack. And I don't know how that new building relates to the multi-purpose community facility / hurricane shelter that they've been building for 10 years now we're talking about. So this may be a new project. It might be the same. I don't know. And then the premier talked at length about the free lunch program.
Right.
And so as most people know, the decision was made to offer free school meals to all the students in public schools, starting at the primary level and up to expand it to second. I have started going through all the budget documents. I've skimmed them all, these hundreds of pages. And it is difficult to compare this year's spending to last year's spending because, when it comes down to, they organize a lot of things differently. So you'll see a dollar amount that's different from another dollar amount, but then you'll look and that other dollar amount will be in a different section of the budget. One example on this is the school meal program. And there actually is a lot more clarity and transparency in the new budget. And they've gone to the point where they've outlined each contractor and provider of school meals in the schools.
Oh, nice.
And with the budgeted amount, that whether it's Mise en Place or Paradise, or in one case, it's John Gray High School PTA that's in charge of it. So they have separate agreements with them saying how much each meal is supposed to cost and what is the expected cost of the program over the next couple of years. I think I looked at that about 20 minutes ago. So I got to put all this stuff in an Excel spreadsheet. But I can end it here by saying, hey guys, I'm going to have a lot of reporting on the budget and a lot of these different programs starting this week on the Current website.
So the reason I think it's important, Patrick, for you to share a little bit about how that works is very often the perception of what gets covered. I think people sometimes, if all we do is report exactly what's said, that's reporting, and here's what they said in the House of Parliament Friday. But what Patrick is doing is providing context on where were we, what does it look like now, what kinds of information is in here that will be useful to people, and it creates a more in-depth picture of what's actually going on. And I have found, in particular, when it comes to budgets and money, and when governments change, or when the ministries reorganize as a result, you will sometimes, it takes a bit to really understand how the information is organized. And it's not just about budgets, it's about a lot of different things. But responsibilities will shift sometimes from one area to another. So this might have been in a separate category before, it's moved over here because this party is now handling it as part of their budget. And so this process that Patrick's about to go through is really important to getting a true understanding of where the money is being spent. It gives you a great idea of what the priorities are and also how it's going to work. And it makes it a bit easier from a press as watchdog perspective to go back and say, okay, well, you said you were doing this, you did do this, but what about these things? So I just thought it might be useful for people to have an understanding of this part of the Patrick up at
Yes.
night sweating over spreadsheets and why. It's not always
Yeah.
the most exciting, but it is some of the nuts and bolts work that needs to be done so that when we do report on issues, we are not just having, I like my knee-jerk superficial reactions. I love them, but that is not the most important component of the reporter's job and the journalist's work.
Yeah, and as you said, when I finished trying to figure out exactly what the budget says, we go back to the strategic policy statement and say, okay, how does this align with what you said a few months ago? And then you go from there to, okay, how does this align with the PACT manifesto and what was said on the campaign trail? And then that, sometimes it aligns perfectly and sometimes it doesn't. And then you ask the question of the human beings, why doesn't this match up? And, they might have interesting answers for that.
And sometimes I do like that part for me because while sometimes people don't like to discuss it, it also sometimes shows as you become more integrated in the process of day to day, you start to learn things about how government works, how education works, how these supplemental programs work. And it gives you an opportunity. I think it gives them an opportunity actually to give a little more insight into how it all works. So I may come in as a relatively new politician I believe that this, and this are how things need to be. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, wait a minute, these things are more complicated than I thought. And if we do this, there are these repercussions. And if we do this, there are these. And you can't sometimes find that story if you haven't had a chance to go through and really compare where we are, and where those gaps may be. And also sometimes new initiatives. I think sometimes weirdly people forget to tell us, actually, we've changed focus and we're going to go this way because we have now learned that this is going to be more effective for us. And that's the kind of stuff that people who are in the middle of doing their jobs sometimes don't remember to tell the world about what's going on. So I just think that makes this part is a pain, but it's also a really good part of the job. Sorry, Patrick, you did a cute little segue out and segue in. It was really good. I like it. I've been trying to secretly mute it to tell my daughter, please keep the dogs up there for a little longer. But, so it goes.
Well, I hear there's classical music going on in the Cummings' house.
So this is me trying. We've got a very crooked Charlie Brown looking tree over on the side, which you cannot see. And so I put a fake fireplace on in the thing, and I'm trying to have soothing, calming music so that Monday I'm not frantic. This is all designed to keep me calm. We'll see how it goes.
And speaking of segues,
yes,
we have another story that I think is interesting on the Current website this week. Mm-hmm. And we've referred to we talked a lot about scholarships, it seems, recently, and scholarship funding. And one of the things that came out last week is more details on the Cayman Scholar Award, which is the government's new kind of most elite, prestigious award. It's going to give out to the top boy and top girl, top boy and Caymanian and Caymanian girl, and they're going to give them $100,000 a year each to attend for their to pursue undergraduate studies at what they were calling an Ivy League or gold-tiered university. But until recently, what constituted something as Ivy League or gold-tiered wasn't known, but now we know. And so what the government has done is they've defined it as schools that appear in the top 100 in the QS World University Rankings, which I think some of our folks with British connections will be familiar with. It's one of the main three international global university ranking lists that are out there, along with the Times. I think it's called the Times Higher Education. I call it the Times Higher Education World University Rankings, which is also UK based. And then there's a China based academic ranking of world universities. So if you're a student who's has really great grades and has gotten into places like MIT or Oxford or Stanford in California, University of Cambridge in the UK, Harvard, these are all very familiar names that people will know, then you'd be eligible to potentially receive this scholarship. But what was interesting to me was when I looked into it, and so I created a list of the top 100. We have the region they're in, their rank, so everybody can search if their favorite school is on there.
And all you have to do is click on his tabs. See, institution, rank, region. It's so good, you guys.
And there's a search box.
I love that too. But there's something missing from these Ivy League schools.
And this was a disappointment to me, is my alma mater, the University of Notre Dame, is not on the top 100 list.
Oh, no.
Which is surprising because it's a top 10 university in the United States, according to different metrics. But I will say my other alma mater, the University of Texas, and you can see my Longhorn, is on the list.
Oh, look at that. I'm totally looking at it. If
anybody wants to join my alumni club, UT is on the list.
So when you say UT and Cayman, don't forget you have to differentiate because some people think you mean University of Tampa.
Yes, the UT.
The original.
Also Tennessee. UT Austin will cover it. Well, it's interesting to me because I was looking, and as an American, and I've been here 10 years now, so when I think of prestigious universities, I think about schools in the United States, Canada, and the UK. Well, this is a global university ranking list, so it's more global than I would expect. So I was a little bit surprised to see that. So there's actually 101 universities on the list because it ties.
Interesting, yeah.
But 35 are in the UK or Europe. 31 are in North America. That's Canada and the US. There's 26 in Asia. So if anybody's been really good at their Cantonese and Mandarin and Korean, then they're institutions.
My kids are not going to make that one, no.
And there's 8 in Australia and New Zealand, which was a surprise to me. Even though one of my brothers went to grad school in Australia, so I know they have some really good schools there. And somewhat surprising to me is there's only one in Latin America, and that's the University in Buenos Aires, Argentina, is on there. But these lists are controversial.
Always.
And I will say the one that we follow in the U.S. usually is the U.S. News and World Report rankings, where they rank domestic universities, and they also have an international one, and the list, and the rankings look very different, even from the same publication. So defending poor Notre Dame, they're always top 10, number 1 ranked programs in accounting and things like that in the domestic list. But also when they go on the global list, they're way out of the top 100 in the U.S. News and World Report. And that's because of the different factors. So generally, and this is also true for like the UK Guardian rankings, is when they're talking about domestic rankings, they talk about things like how competitive it is to get in, what's your value for money, what's campus life, student satisfaction, things like that. With these global university rankings, they really tend to emphasize academic research and citations. So they don't really say, well, how much does it cost and what you get. They'll do big analyses of academic citations and research journals and say, hey man, MIT is really cranking it out, even though they're at the top of like every single list, right? So I mean, I thought it was really interesting digging into the methodology,
Yeah.
and I have links where other people can do that as well, and they can argue for their own universities. I did think it was interesting.
Mine was not even mine wasn't even on any of those lists. My U.S. one.
Yeah, I think it's super. What it's also interesting to me is that, a little factoid about Ivy League. It's become this generalized term meaning like really great school, but what it actually means in the U.S. is it's this group of 8 private research universities that in the northeast of the U.S. and that is Harvard, Yale, Princeton, et cetera, et cetera. One of them is not, so 7 of the 8 are on the top 100 list. One of them is not. Poor Dartmouth College, ranked out at 191. So if anybody gets accepted into Dartmouth and wants to apply for the Cayman Scholar Award, they might have to go back to a literal interpretation of what Ivy League means.
Yeah,
but it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, imagine. Not the problem I'm going to have. So what I also think that's helpful too is that it does, and I'm a big fan of your searchable tables and such, because I think it is helpful to be able to just sort through information according to different criteria and based on what you're interested in looking in. And this is not the only scholarship funding provided by the government of the Cayman Islands, of course. I mean, this is just that gold standard level. I think the undergrad is what,
35,000 now.
35,000. Nothing to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at. And even international students, interestingly enough, can get scholarship funding in the U.S. sometimes, which I find interesting as well. You don't always necessarily have to be an American citizen or anything.
And what puts things in perspective is how much more expensive American universities can be than international. And I saw a story on the UK, in the UK press, where they said they analyzed in the student with the most outstanding loans. So the most in debt student in the UK was £150,000. And you say, that's normal in the US.
Do you know how long it took me to pay off student loans? I can't even begin to tell you. And I had scholarships as well. It was so expensive. And by the way, not a top tier university by any stretch. It was just very specialized for my field, right? So I loved that about it. But it took me years, years to pay it off.
Oh, I'm still paying off.
I'm older than you. I am way older. So 10 years back, 15 years back.
Yeah.
So that saying context is good, right? Like it helps. And as young
so it's cool. So if you, I just think it's interesting. You get a little competitive on the school you like, and hey, why is this not on this list? And blah blah blah. But you do get to learn a lot about the different schools. You just throw the ranking number out of it. Very rich resources on how highly rated the different degree programs are, kind of research they're doing, and so you can just throw out the numbers and really dig into the schools that you may be interested in.
And we forget, from an employment standpoint on the other end, sometimes it is also a good idea to get a sense of the businesses that you're interested in, or the industries you're interested in working in later. Sometimes talking to them about which institutions or types of institutions are appealing to them. So I might assume, because of my Cayman American background, that this American university that's highly rated in, let's say, accounting is the thing to do. But the company the companies I'm interested in working in actually might prefer, because of where their offices may be, that I pursue it at one of these other institutions in countries that I might not normally have considered. So this is that little bit of research that I always recommend young people do about the work they're interested in. It's almost like I say, go out and be a journalist on this one. Go talk to the different companies, find out who they are, find out what they're interested in, and create for yourself a pathway that's as rounded as possible, fitting within the content. I'm not saying you only go to this school because that company wants it, but you kind of need to get a sense and understanding of what they're looking for. as a whole, and then you can react accordingly. So if I wanted to work in, I don't know, some of the Latin American markets, perhaps that may change which institutions I choose to go to. And bearing in mind that sometimes your funding is not going to come from the gold tiered plan of the Cayman Islands government, but it may come from private sector as well. So sometimes it's combinations of things. So a little bit of research is really, really good on that front. But I don't love research all the time. I like Patrick to do all that part, but it's important as you're setting out your educational journey in life.
Agreed.
Agreed. April's so right once again.
Oh, I'm just getting shiver down my spine.
Oh, so good. So good. All right. So turkey in the oven for you. I'm going to go listen to some nice Christmas music. Yeah, he's like, time. And is there anything that you wanted us to touch on before we wrap up for this?
Well, I'm glad you asked that.
It's not like I have a note that says Ask Patrick.
Yeah, we can preview the next episode of EDBEAT, and we'll be returning to our talk about higher education. And very happy that Dr. Byron Kuhn, the president of ICCI, has agreed to appear in a panel discussion. And equally happy to say that Tom Simpson, a former UCCI board member who's also been involved, heavily involved with the University of Toronto, and both Dr. Kuhn and Mr. Simpson have been involved on either sides of the process in terms of recruiting and hiring university leaders. So they're going to talk to us about what that process looks like.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to it. All right. So Patrick, enjoy the rest of what's left of your weekend. And we're going to get this show on the road and on the channel. If you have any comments, feedback, etc., you can always post them on the social media platforms. Or, of course, you can email us anytime. Patrick's like, wait,
one more thing. Yeah, it was Mike Colombo. One more thing, April. We've been I forget if we said this before, but we've been some people may be consuming this EDBEAT in the form of a podcast.
Yes, I don't know if we did. I don't think we told people yet.
Yeah, so at the Current, we're very progressive and experimentating, and I forget all the cool words.
Trying things out.
Yeah, but we're experimenting with podcasts and to see if this is a format that people want to take advantage of. So what we're doing is we're going back to the different EDBEAT episodes and we're turning them into podcasts. You basically strip the audio file, you edit out the ums and when I say something factually wrong, and then
Just so you know, people, they're not editing out my factual errors and just Patrick's.
Yeah, they splice in corrections from me, April. So
I can't believe you said that, April.
Yeah, so we're on we're using Anchor FM at the suggestion of April, and
I love it very much. I do. It's great.
And so you can find us on SoundCloud, and I think we're on Google right now, and we'll just continue to add different platforms because we want to make it as easy and convenient as possible for people to access our content.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Anchor FM, you can download the app on your phone, but it also serves as a distribution service. So if you really prefer to use a different platform, as Patrick is alluding to over the coming weeks, it will start to post and disseminate it. So I'm an iPhone person. I usually use Apple Podcasts most of the time. I just mark it as one of my favorites and it queues it up for me. And then when I'm, out there trying really hard to exercise, for the duration of an entire episode of, EDBEAT or Radio Cayman News. It's a really great way to you can do something else while you're doing, you don't have to watch. I know we'll love
and with the return of tourists may become the return of traffic. So like it or not,
listen to in the car.
You might be stuck in the car.
Absolutely. And that said, don't forget to tell us what you like and don't like, what formats are working for you. It just helps give us an idea of what kinds of things we should be trying going forward. And if you have recommendations send those along too, because those can be really, really helpful for us. There may be a platform we don't know about that we don't use. So let us know. Give us a shout out. But send them all to Patrick. I'm kidding. All right. Yeah. So I'm I'm now looking for the pretty closing graphic. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Patrick, once again, it's a pleasure, and really looking forward to next week's episode. I think it's going to be really good.
Agreed. Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you.